startup journey is like the most insane highs and the most insane lows. I mean, you have your own business. It's all consuming. Very difficult to dissociate between work and life because it kind of is your life. It very much takes a certain type of person mindset. That's the most important. Being able to be resilient, being able to pivot. With AI, for example, you really have to think, how's that going to affect your business and how do you take that and make it a tool for growth instead of something that replaces you. High conviction and being resourceful, especially in the beginning. Resourcefulness is huge. My philosophy is that there's so many problems, and I think if we can create more solutions to those problems, the better. Entrepreneurship enables that. I'm very attracted to that mentality of growing and taking something from an idea and actually making it happen. It's also the mindset of how do I make this idea work?
Welcome back to another episode of When It Matters. I'm Elle Noble, Founders Associate here at Meshed, and I have a wonderful guest with me today, Luc Janssens from Mercantile Accounting. Welcome.
Thank you.
To the pod.
This is awesome.
It's so lovely to have you. I've wanted to have you on for so long. Let's start with a bit of an intro to you. You're doing something pretty special and quite unique in the accounting space. Before we get into that, give us the backstory. How did you get to where you are now?
Sure.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, so as you can probably, well, you'll know, but everyone else will eventually get it, like my accent. I'm from South Africa. So I moved over here just over 4 years ago, did the standard audit route, pretty much a streamline into the UK for a lot of South Africans. Did my articles, and then sort of a lot of life circumstances happened, and it kind of became a catalyst for me to quit my job. But I've always had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit. I did a bunch of work at my previous university and set up an incubator there, and I've always dabbled within the sort of entrepreneurship space. Like I did accounting for a bunch of startups at university for like side money. I worked for an accounting firm part-time that also helped SMEs in South Africa. So I kind of built that skill and that understanding of how the accounting works within a startup space. And then I moved over here, had the opportunity to come, and then I thought, you know what, I've just quit my job. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I kind of just spoke to all my mates that had businesses or people that were within the, startup space. And it kind of made sense for me to go out and sort of start a practice, and take the skills that I had learned and my network to then go and, build out finance functions for startups. And it kind of just happened. Like I didn't really plan it. It was just me hustling. And then I kind of got to this point. I sort of connected with an old colleague of mine from BDO, and together we're now building Mercantile. So yeah, the two of us are here in London, and we've now got a back office in South Africa. And yeah, we just sort of taking it day by day at this point.
And how long have you guys? It's been coming a year and a half.
Yeah, close to a year and a half of my involvement. My business partner Antonio, who you also met when we first met, he's sort of been in the game for a little bit longer, because he qualified a few years before me. So he also did a similar thing, started his own practice, and then we thought, let's combine forces. And yeah, now we're building Mercantile together.
Dream team.
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
And so Mercantile specializes in kind of outsourced finance function and kind of, but more than that, kind of consulting and advisory for startups specifically, right?
Yeah.
And you're going down a sort of VC route where you kind of work with VCs and then will kind of mushroom into their portcos, right? Give us the detail.
Yeah, so it's kind of evolved very naturally. I think for us, we take a very founder-focused approach. So we really understand like what do our clients and the people within the ecosystem need. So obviously, the finance function is the backbone of every business. If you run out of money, if you don't know how to manage money, and you don't have sort of that financial discipline, doesn't matter how much you raise, like your business is going to break. So obviously that's the fundamental level. And then, through conversations and getting an understanding of what our clients need, access to capital, how to manage that capital is the next phase. So we've sort of created an investor network just over time where we, introduce a lot of founders to investors, and we try our best to match them as best as possible. So match the investment criteria with what the founders actually need. And that we find create the most amount of value for both parties. And then once they've raised or during the raise, we can help facilitate that. And eventually we have aspirations to become our own sort of fund as well, where we can provide that capital to our clients through our own sort of in-house capital. Yeah.
kind of
exactly.
moment. I love that so much. And it's interesting because actually before I was at Mesh, I had a startup in Amsterdam and we raised like a sort of seven-figure pre-seed, and we had the most incredible accountant who was kind of like our startup dad. Like I was in
Yeah,
my early like we myself and my co-founders, we didn't really know what we were doing,
yeah,
and his role became so indispensable to us because he just had all of this knowledge and wisdom, not just about numbers but
mm.
building a thriving business in general. And I guess for you, working, specifically in that kind of startup network, what are the biggest challenges you see them facing? At the moment, there's quite a lot of talk about, um, some difficulty raising capital in particular areas. Entry. It's called like entry ticket is a lot higher than it used to be, stuff like
Yeah.
that. What are the biggest challenges you're finding that founders, are kind of facing in their journey?
I
Pre-raise, post-raise,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I
Mm,
guess we can split it up because
mm,
I feel like, and that's something that we try and do is we help. We basically your finance partner throughout your entrepreneurial journey. So,
nice.
we've got clients who we've set up their businesses for them, like help them register it, and then we've got
Mm,
some companies that are, they all around they're global. So we're helping
mm,
tax strategies. They may be moving towards how do we start gearing up towards a Series A.
mm,
They've got staff. They've got revenue. They a little bit more mature,
mm,
and they have different problems to the guys who have just started. I think sort of across the board, cash flow is always
mm.
the
Raise
biggest
them. Mm,
situation. Understanding what your cash flow is and what your burn rate is, whether you bootstrapped or you've raised, actually fundamentally understanding what that number is on a
mm,
daily basis or
mm,
weekly basis, is hugely important. I think the guys who are starting out sort of pre-seed stage, you're kind of in your survival mode.
right.
Like everything's
Mm,
messy,
mm,
documents and data's all over the place. So I think when we come in at that stage, it's very much about sort of let's build that foundation.
mm,
Let's make sure all your data is in one place, and that you can understand what that means from a
mm,
fundamental perspective. Your compliance, like let's
mm,
get the basics done,
mm,
and then when you start gearing up to sort of your seed round or post raising, it's very much about how do you manage that capital, because now
mm,
you've been given like a lifeline here. You've been given an
mm,
injection of capital. So how do we utilize that the best way possible?
mm,
And then make sure that you're setting up your systems in the right way so you can scale. Because now
mm.
you've got the fuel to scale, but you don't want your systems to break, or else you're just gonna keep having to
Okay.
build as you go along.
Mm,
And then the guys who are sort of post that and maybe looking for closer to a Series A, I think it's really much about how do you gear up your business to you know attract those kind of investors.
mm,
Those systems have to be dialed, like the reporting needs to be on top point. All of the processes need to be in place, so we can come in different points in time and help build
mm.
at various stages, and we can if we're getting really early, we can scale with them. We can
Yeah.
help them with their first hires. Now they have to do payroll. What does that mean? Then I'll hit that threshold. Like, what does that mean? All of these like little bumps in the road that are
Mm,
the challenges that you want because it means you're
mm.
growing, but it's also a bit of a headache. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, can you please help us with this? Because firstly, we don't know what's going on. We don't want to get into trouble with like HMRC, and it's a bit of a mission, right? And we can
Yeah.
help with a lot of that, and then help the general guidance, how to we really are involved in that strategic thinking
Mm,
and the decision making conversations.
mm,
We've, for an example, we had a client that towards the end of the year end, they had some cash left over. They had some profits, and they were thinking, do we extend our runway or do we hire? And it's we can build out models to
mm.
figure out what's the best route for them, and that might be different for them to someone else, depending on the industry, depending on what their goals are. So it does become a little bit more sort of
Strategic
yeah,
embedded partner.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and that happens naturally over time, right? You
Yeah.
don't need that on day one. You need to grow. You need to
Mm,
make sure that you're getting in clients, you're starting to get revenue, if that's your sort of business model.
yeah.
And we can kind of help with different
Help.
stages. Yeah.
But you know what I love about this is, as you said, that idea of like evolving with them. And I think we had a lovely guest on a few episodes back called Fee Titus. She was talking about, she has like an accounting tech startup, and
Mm.
she was saying how the best, she's recently got a co-founder, she was like, the best thing about that is having somebody to kind of celebrate with you, and somebody, but also somebody to kind of ride the lows with. And I
100%.
imagine having an accounting partner, like a sounding board, a really kind of, a sort of sage, wise, kind of, individual who's kind of seen a lot of different companies, who's
Yeah.
been through this before by proxy through all these different other startups, I think must be so valuable. And I guess for you, are there any kind of moments that have been particularly rewarding? Like any kind of stories you can share, obviously anonymizing, but like any stories you can share about, perhaps startups coming to you pre or post raise and a bit of a mess, or that angst, the kind of trials and tribulations that come with being a founder. Yeah. Any moments that
Yeah,
come
I
to
mean,
mind?
there's a few. One sort of, yeah, one
Mm.
example is a friend of mine actually came to me, and she's basically building this wellness slash female only gym studio wellness
Oh,
brand
love the
slash
sound of
actual
those.
physical studio.
Yeah.
Um, and she needed help. She was basically raising capital,
Mm.
but she had no idea what to present. Like,
Mm.
how do I present as an investable business?
Mm.
It was debt in this situation. So I basically helped her with all the like the modeling, the financials, and all that kind of stuff. And she had business plans and everything else, but she just needed help with that specific component.
Mm.
And subsequently she got the funding that she needed, so she's now busy building that. But
Mm.
that's like something very small.
Mm.
And another one is another one of our clients. They started out a year ago,
Mm.
and they were literally on zero, and now they're on over 200K in revenue in the first year,
Cool.
and like they've had to hire people, and they've gone through all the different stages very quickly, and we've been able to help them sort of steady the ship as they've navigated all those like
Oh my
tranches
god.
of challenges.
And you
So
feel that success as well,
yeah,
right?
we
You're
feel
like,
the success. Yeah, we
yeah,
scale with
you
our
scale with
clients. That's
them.
that's that's the whole sort of
The whole
the
thing.
thesis of you know targeting the startup ecosystem, because we can provide a lot of value earlier
Mm.
on.
Mm.
And because of the way we've structured our business, we're able to provide those services
Mm.
within the means of, startups at that stage don't necessarily have like the cash flow, for example, and yeah, they don't necessarily have the funding. Like, there's various ways that we can help be a little bit malleable as we
Mm.
help them, and whether it's flexing fees or having like a after this point we
Then we
we, we
can.
do different services, and
Mm.
it's going to cost a different amount, and that's how we can help them with their cash flow as well, because that's like one of the biggest issues.
Mm.
It's cash flow, and then having the guidance of how to like build those systems early, so that
Yeah.
when you do scale it doesn't break.
And
Yeah.
also, I can imagine being, a smaller, far more agile practice,
Mm.
over some big conglomerate is also exactly what these founders need, particularly because
Yeah.
you're also doing the journey with them as a founder yourself. Like, you're
Yeah.
literally, in a very similar position to them, right? Like a year in, they might be couple years in, like having that empathy, true
Yeah.
empathy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's definitely
Mm.
something that's driven a lot of our growth, is
Mm.
having an aligned mindset.
Yes.
And it's about how do we make it work?
Mm.
Because some sort of more traditional accounting, maybe finance, services or whatever, might be a little bit more rigid, a little
Mm.
bit like older way of thinking,
Mm.
and maybe a little bit more focused on like the historical data,
Yeah.
whereas we very much are trying to like look ahead and how do
Mm.
we plan for future growth.
Yeah.
So yeah, that alignment of mentality and
Mm.
mindset is definitely
Mm.
something that's helped us grow as well.
And I guess, being, aligned in kind of mentality and in a similar stage as a lot of your customers, both going through the journey yourself, but also observing all these different startups, speaking to these VCs, I would just love to know from your perspective, because I think particularly well informed, like, what do you think does a startup or a founder need to have in 2026 today to really succeed and really thrive in the current market? Just quite generally,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mindset.
No,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, I mean, mindset any
Yeah.
era is the most
Everything.
important,
Mm.
because I feel like there's a very I actually was speaking to someone the other day about this, and the question was, if you could start over again, like you either
Mm.
had to start over again, from scratch, or you were sort of like teleported into a sort of higher level managerial role at a
Mm.
established business. So it's like that comfort and sort of
This is the
yeah, comfort of life, or the like the fire pit of being a
the
founder.
pain. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it very
Yeah.
much takes a certain type of person,
Mm,
um, and of course, therefore, mindset. So
mm,
that's the most important. It's being able to be resilient, being able to pivot. I mean, like now with AI, for example, and other things that are gonna come after AI,
mm.
you really have to think about practically how is that gonna affect your business, and how do you take that and make it a tool for growth
Mm.
instead of something that replaces you. And that again comes to mindset, being optimistic, being able to solve problems with the mindset that eventually it's going to work.
Yeah.
I think that's number
High
one.
conviction.
Yeah,
Mm,
high conviction, and,
mm.
and kind of just being able to shrug off things, and being resourceful, especially in the beginning. Resourcefulness is huge.
Mm.
And I think, in a way, I know we spoke a little bit about South Africans earlier, but in a way, I think that's why we have a few, actually quite a few South African clients,
Mm.
and a lot of my friends from South Africa that moved over here do have their own businesses.
Mm.
And I think that resourcefulness that we've brought with us from, growing up in South Africa, I think has been an element that's made my my community and also myself and Ant very well successful in what
Successful.
we've done so far.
Mm.
So that's definitely another element.
God, I love that. Yeah, that's such a good answer. I love all of those things. And I think I'd love to talk about co-founders actually in that dynamic, because I think something I
Yeah.
hear all the time is that you accountants, you guys are like also kind of therapists for your customers, and you're like kind of like their counselors as well as their numbers. And I think a lot of the time in startups it can be really tricky with
Mm.
co-founders. It's a very fraught relationship. There's a lot of pressure there. I'd love to know, I'd love to hear about the dynamic between you and your co-founder, and also I guess the lessons that you've learned that you share with your customers, and whether
Mm.
they have kind of taught you anything about the co-founder dynamic and how to preserve that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm,
no,
mm.
I'm with you. It is a it's a very
Like
complex.
it's a marriage, but
Yeah,
even more legally
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of bound
It's
than that.
it's it's
Mm,
the it's almost the thing that can make or break your business. I'm a
mm,
big believer in having someone with you.
mm,
You mentioned earlier someone to share
mm,
the the celebrations,
mm,
but also the lows. Like
mm,
the sort of startup journey it's like the most insane highs and the most insane lows.
mm,
And having someone to, if you're feeling like terrible, they can help pick up some slack, and if they're
mm.
feeling terrible, you can help pick up their slack. And that's something that me and Ant have felt like in a real sense over the past few months. Juggling like a lot of,
Mm.
everyone's got their own personal things that are going on in life, because yes, we're building businesses, but we also have like a life
Yeah.
outside of that, right?
Mm.
And that is always going to seep in, because when you have your own business, it's all consuming, but everything else within your life is also like
Mm.
included in that.
Mm.
You almost very difficult to dissociate between like work
100%.
and life, because
Mm.
it kind of is your life.
Mm.
um Especially in the beginning, before build out those systems, and you can eventually like scale out of that
Mm.
that situation. But I think it's pretty innate in who sort of founders are and the type of people that they are. It kind of is all consuming. um but yeah, Ant and I are very different people, and that's something that I learned pretty quickly in terms of personalities and how we process things and how we like to challenge things. And a really cool exercise that I did, I don't know if you are aware, I don't know what the like technical name is, but
Mm.
there's a there's this thing in psychology where you have different colors associated to different personalities, and
Mm.
you could say, okay, you're a blue or a green or a red or a yellow. And we did a test for Ant and myself, and then everyone else within the company, to just get an understanding of what color they were.
Mm.
And that simple sort of test or exercise has completely changed the way that me and Ant speak to each other. Um, because so
I love
yeah,
this. What a
yeah,
good
no,
idea. So you know how to communicate with them properly.
yeah, correctly. So
What's going to really work for them? Like,
yeah, one hundred
mm.
percent. Because Ant and I are different in the way that we like to problem solve or take action on things. For example, he's a little bit more to the point. He likes to know facts.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm a little bit more higher level thinking
Mm-hmm.
naturally.
Mm.
Um, and that way we can push and pull each other in a way that we
Mm.
scale very sustainably and cover each other's bases. Because if it was just up to me, I mean, I would be floating into the stars, right? And like allows me to be a
So
little bit more
ground.
grounded and
Mm.
think about things and unpack things a little bit more. And
Mm.
then I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's do this.
Mm.
Okay, cool. Then we're gonna do it in this order, right? And
Interesting.
that has helped us scale a lot as well. It's been to understand like how we both work,
Mm.
like how our minds work, you know. But we both very optimistic. We both like have a lot of amazing ideas for the business,
Mm.
um, and we want to scale this thing, right? So we're very aligned in a lot of ways, but we think about things very differently, and I think that's been a huge asset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, to be honest, that that kind of discrepancy, the visionary and the detail, and both of you being able to bring different pieces to that is probably what makes you guys a complete dream team, right? Because I think
yeah,
that together is the perfect match.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah,
Mm.
obviously there's tension that gets created, but I
Mm.
think if you're able to understand that
Mm.
and you're aware of why that is,
Mm.
then you're good. And I think that's some advice that I would probably give people that maybe have co-founders that are very different,
Mm.
is just understand. It doesn't necessarily have to be the color thing, but understand the perspective,
How they operate.
how they
Yeah.
operate. Exactly, because we're all different. Like, just because you see something one way doesn't mean that everyone else around you sees it the
Is it?
same way. And like that's sometimes the issue is like you just assume that everyone sees it the same way,
Right.
and that creates the friction because you're like,
He doesn't get it. Like, why are
exactly,
they
like
not?
why?
Yeah.
But it's because he thought about a complete different angle, and you're like, actually that angle makes more
More
sense,
sense.
and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's go that way, and then you unpack that even further.
Such good advice. Honestly, like it's interesting because when I joined Mesh, something I did quite probably like 3 to 6 months, 3 4 months in, I think. Whisper AI. Do you use Whisper?
Yeah, yeah,
So I just whispered, just for anybody listening. It's like a it's like
yeah,
a dictation tools. You just talk into your laptop and it like really accurately transcribes what you're saying. And I just whispered into, I think it was ChatGPT or Gemini, something like just describing all three of the founders,
yeah.
how they operate, blah blah blah, blah, to like map out how I can best communicate with them.
Yeah.
And but I really wish I had sort of done that earlier. Like it was something I did really late in. And actually, I remember when I was doing exec search, I had a CEO who, before he interviewed anybody, made them do a personality test, so he knew their profile. And I thought
Yeah.
it was such a good idea. I love that takeaway. That's going to be like a big one that we push. What a good one. And I guess in terms of for you and building the kind of mercantile network and everything like that. I obviously met you first at a networking event that you held at the Ned, and it was so
Yeah.
lovely. How have you gone about building? I was so impressed as well that so early on you had this pretty sizable community of people coming to your events. How did that begin? How do you think about business development, relationship building? I'd love your take on that. Mm.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm been sort of networking, I think, my whole life. I think
Mm.
that's just the person that I am.
Yeah.
It very
Mm.
much suits my personality.
Mm.
And it was actually one of the points of frustration that I had when I was sort of in corporate and in a role where I just knew I wasn't using
Your
my best skill,
strengths.
the
Mm.
ability to connect with people and connect people.
Mm.
And those are the two things that I embody like the most. And obviously Mercantile is just a vehicle for me to do that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think I'm very big believer in like what you give is what you get in terms of like energy, and
Mm.
I think if you can approach things in a way where, again, comes to understanding, what are you about? What do
Mm.
you need? What do I need? How can we create what I like to call like a value transaction? And that's very much like a one plus
Mm.
one equals three situation. Like how can you get something from me and I get something for you simultaneously, but we both help each other, right? And I think I've just applied that throughout my whole life.
Mm.
And now within the sort of startup ecosystem, it's very much about, bringing people together where they can collaborate.
Mm.
Like, for example, the event that you came to, there were people that we specifically brought to that event that were in similar industries so that they could speak to each other. They'd never met before, but,
So,
they go out and do their thing, and maybe something
mm.
happens from that, maybe something doesn't, but, you in the room, you have the opportunity. And I think another sort of way I go about it is I don't necessarily go into any of these situations with a specific outcome in mind,
No
or
agenda.
no
Yeah, I
agenda. Yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
because one, it's very narrow thinking,
Mm,
and it immediately sets you up for failure,
mm,
because if it doesn't meet that agenda, you immediately think it was a waste of time. But I don't
mm,
necessarily believe that any of those interactions are a waste of time,
mm,
because you can always get something from an interaction, whether it's a potential network that you're gonna use in 2 years time, or it's a little bit of knowledge that makes you think, and then you go and unpack that and you're like, oh my gosh, we can do something incredible.
mm.
um yeah, so just going in it like genuinely just curious.
Yeah.
And but the way I think is always like, okay, I'll meet people, and then in the back of my mind I'm remembering what they do and what they
Mm,
need.
mm,
And I mean, I'm actively building this, and we have our own sort of database within Mercantile where we can connect people on a
mm.
real basis, and we do this every day. Like we intro people all the time, whether it's founders and investors, founders with other founders, investors with other investors, other service providers.
Mm.
It's kind of almost become a role that we've started facilitating at Mercantile, is that quarterback role, where
Oh, wait.
a lot of our founders will come to us for advice on things that maybe extend past the
Just
finance
finance.
function, but
Yeah.
they know that it's almost like the first port of call. It's
Yeah.
like, what do we do here? And we're like, oh, okay, you probably need to speak to a financial advisor. Here are three guys that you should speak to. Here are their
Mm,
numbers. We'll send them to you, and we'll make the
mm.
intros. Like, we're able to do that, and I think that's just because that's the way we think. And it's
Yeah.
just naturally happened over time. And I think just being in the rooms. I mean, when I started, I was on like online, in person, hosting webinars, everything,
My
like to try
gosh.
and just get the name out
Hustling.
there,
Mm,
get to know people within the industry.
mm.
Um, yeah, and just let
Wow.
people know like what Mercantile is, right, and who I am as Luke.
Yeah.
And I think that's just happened consistently over the last like year and a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a credit to you guys because I mean, yeah, for you guys to be like a year and a half in and like already have built up this incredible network, and also and it's currently just the two of you, isn't it? Currently,
Well,
or
no,
is it
so yeah, we got a back office in South
in South
Africa.
Africa?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So and that's another reason why we're able to sort of facilitate work at a really cost efficient way.
because you've got
Because we
so
we
small.
have our base
Mm,
out of South Africa. We have a
mm,
lot of automation that we've built within the business, so
mm.
we can execute certain amount of work at a very cost efficient way, which allows us to provide a lot of value to earlier stage businesses that might not have the cash flow
Yeah.
that other sort of more mature businesses have. But that's the stage where it's almost the most critical
Maybe.
to have a good finance function and someone to help guide you, be that sort of
So
martyr or whatever you said it
true.
was,
Yeah,
the father of
yeah.
the,
Yeah, the
yeah,
startup
yeah, the
dad.
startup
Yeah.
dad,
Yeah.
exactly. That's when you need,
Mm.
especially if you don't have that within the co-founders, or the first,
In their skill set.
yeah, within their
Mm.
skill set, or within
Mm.
the first few hires. And
Mm.
traditionally, and even more so like now going into the future, like people are hiring sort of more technical,
Mm.
more sales, which of course you need to drive revenue and to drive value in the business, but it's very overlooked, the finance function, right?
Yeah.
And we're able to provide that flexibility where you might not need to have that in house right now,
Mm. Mm.
but we can help you get to the point where you can start building out that bigger team, right?
Team. Yeah. And I guess it's so true actually. Like Nanny McPhee when she's like when you don't need when you don't need me, you do.
Yeah,
Or you don't think you need me, you do. Or something like that. Like when it's like they need you the most
yeah,
when they don't actually have that much capital to kind of spend on finance functions. That's so interesting and so
yeah.
true.
And it frees up a
Yeah.
lot of capacity as well as a founder, right?
Mm.
So I mean, we all have lives,
Yeah.
um, and those that are building businesses, and maybe it's just them, or just them and a co-founder, or maybe, I mean, even a team of five. Like, there's only so much you can do and think about in a day
Mm.
and a week. And we help you not have to go and think about certain
Yeah.
things and have to learn about it,
Yeah. And
and
compliance
taking
is
up your,
scary
yeah,
as
and
well.
it's super important. Like,
Yeah.
it's the backbone of every business, and there's also a lot of like real world implications if things are done incorrectly, and
Mm.
there's legal implications. And especially if you're starting to get into the world of wanting to raise money, like there's
Mm.
other investors involved, like it becomes
Quite a big
quite
deal.
serious
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I think when you start out a business, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm like doing this thing, and then it starts to become a little bit more legit, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Oh
now
shit.
I need to do this thing properly, or else it's not going to turn into something that I want it to turn into, or I'm going to let down people, or when you start,
Mm.
like, we have employees, like, it's all,
Livelihoods
yeah,
to
there's like
yeah. Mm.
responsibility there,
Yeah.
and we got to make sure that we're able to uphold that responsibility, and obviously for our clients as well, there's responsibility there, so it becomes a lot more real.
So, so true. Like people are just like, we're just vibe coding. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
going
yeah.
great. Oh god, actually, it's become quite serious
But
or
I still
something. But
think
yeah,
guys should just go out and do
yeah,
their thing. And there's so, like, yeah, and that's where we can come in and help, is like, do your thing and let's do your thing together. You know what I mean?
yeah. We can support. Yeah, I love that. And like, would you ever like, in terms of how you would yeah, how a customer might pay you if they haven't raised or whatever, they don't have money in the bank. Would you ever take like equity in a company by means of payment?
We've spoken about this,
Mm.
and I actually was advised by some people that suggested something like this. At
Interesting.
this point in time, we haven't, but it might potentially be
Mm.
a way. And the thing is, like, for us, we very, we are able to be flexible in the way that
Mm.
payment can be done
Mm.
in some regards,
Mm.
and if it makes sense for the client in that stage and it works for everyone,
Mm.
I mean, of course, then
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah. Because imagine if you, I guess if you had like say 10 startups, but a little bit of equity in each, and then like one out of those 10 probably, could come really good. Like it's kind of like an interesting model to think
Yeah, yeah, no, of
economics wise.
course, yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely
something to think
interesting,
about.
and
Mm.
like, because we quite lean in and sort of early-ish,
Mm.
we are able to dabble with
Yeah.
different ways of how we operate,
Yeah.
and
And are you primarily looking at AI and tech startups, or is it all you
yes.
ended up kind of in that niche?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when Ant sort of started out, the crypto sort of scene was
Mm.
booming.
Booming. Okay.
And so we still have quite a few like crypto clients, and that kind of became a space where we could get into that market quite easy, because people didn't
Mm.
really want to touch crypto, from like an
Interesting.
accounting perspective, because it is, it's quite techy.
Yeah.
But obviously the nature of London specifically and the
Mm.
UK, like, and 2026, it's like tech and AI is
Mm.
obviously the thing at this point in time. So of course, naturally, a lot of our clients are within that space, but we are across the board. We've got some like manufacturing companies, we've got some F&B products.
Also, so smart, like de-risking as
Yeah,
well.
well,
So
yeah,
smart.
de-risking,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course.
Mm.
Professional service businesses. Yeah, it also, for me, like, for me and Ant, like, it's super interesting. Like, we
Mm.
get to learn about different industries as well,
Mm.
um, and then be able to sort of create niches within those industries later in the in the journey, right?
I love that. And I would love to know, I'm asking everybody this at the moment because I'm getting so many different answers.
Yeah,
Like there's
yeah.
obviously no right or wrong. It's just I don't think anybody knows. But if you had like, I don't know, 100 million now,
Mm.
and you could put it into one like subtype of company, so like AI for enterprise, or like infrastructure, like AI infrastructure, or like what area would you focus on? Hardware, like, yeah, what
Yeah,
would you
yeah, yeah, no,
focus
no, I'm
on?
with you. I'm with you. That is a tough one. I think there's a couple things that are like immediately just
In your
popping up.
head, yeah.
And I think it's also just recency bias, I guess. But
Mm.
I think space is going to be
Interesting.
huge.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
especially sort of, it almost like sounds crazy, but like manufacturing within space or energy within space.
Oh,
Because obviously the cost to deliver things into space is
it's
becoming
fucking,
cheaper, right? And
yeah.
you have unlimited energy in space.
It's
So I
interesting.
think that would be a region, and it's just like space is,
So cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
space is cool.
Did you watch the rocket one?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I literally, I used to want to be an astronaut when I was a kid. Yeah,
Oh my
I think
god. Every kid,
every
yeah.
kid wants to be an astronaut. But I think that, and then, I mean, if I'm really, looking ahead, it would be, maybe quantum, or
Yeah, interesting, yeah.
something to do with the infrastructure of the next thing. So whatever that is, something that you build, like, other people's businesses can get built on
You're on
top of
top of it.
your
The
fund.
layer.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Because that way you win. Doesn't matter how
Mm.
many winners come out of that next thing, whether it's AI or quantum. If you've been able to help on the infrastructure level, like
They win, you win. Yeah,
exactly, you actually
yeah.
want
Them to, yeah,
those guys to win. So,
yeah.
and it's usually the like sneaky, really boring businesses that actually make the most amount of value.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd probably put it into something like that. I don't know what that
I
would be.
love that.
Whatever the next boring sort of
Infrastructural
infrastructure
areas.
area would be. Yeah.
So interesting. Guys, you heard it here first. Like, I love it. And I'm just aware of time. There's so much else I wanted to ask you. I guess just to finish, I always just love to know, like, where do you think for you this like entrepreneurial spirit has come from, right? Like you've had like, quite a lot of success like pretty young. Like where's this what's the driver behind this for you?
As a
We're getting deep.
Yeah, we're getting deep.
The
Yeah,
after
yeah,
stuff.
it's the this conversation. I actually don't know. I think I've always been, ever since I was a kid, I always have done extra stuff. Like
Mm,
when I was at school, I was that kid that was at school from 7 till 7. Like I did
mm,
music, sport, like societies. Like I just wanted to do so many things. I think I've always
mm,
had energy,
mm,
and I've always struggled to sit still. So I think I needed to do something.
mm.
And then as I got older, I was like, oh, I can do like cooler things, maybe slightly more like legit things. Like I don't know, like build a business. I don't know. And I think it links to my mentality of value transactions. Like how can I connect people for that transaction to create more value for both parties? And I
Mm,
think entrepreneurship enables me to do that because there's so many ways that people can build businesses,
mm,
and so many ways that people can be connected. And I think also my philosophy is that there's there's so many problems, and I think if we can create more solutions to those problems, the better.
yeah.
And entrepreneurship enables that.
Mm,
And those problems will change over time. There's been problems that have been problems for hundreds of years, but there'll be future problems with new
mm.
technology and stuff like that. And we kind of need guys to keep you know
Keep.
developing new ideas and new
Mm.
products to solve those. And yeah, I just want to be involved in that space. And I think it's also the mindset of how do I make this idea work?
Work.
And I'm
Yeah.
very attracted to that mentality of growing,
Mm,
and taking something from an idea and actually making it happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Into like an
So
end. Yeah.
it's kind of just all a mindset thing, I think.
I love that. And then my last question we ask everybody at the end of the pod. Is there somebody normally we say in the accounting space, but I think for you we extend it to kind of startup entrepreneurship in general, somebody who's doing something cool, something a bit different that you would love to kind of shout out and kind of spotlight, yeah. Someone who I guess you admire, yeah, in the entrepreneurship or startup world.
Sure.
Mm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually quite a tricky one. Also, sometimes people on the spot are like, "Oh my god, I don't know," and then after they're like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
suddenly
Like I have like
nominating
thousands
people."
of ideas
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. It is a tricky one.
I thought you might say, "Who is that lovely man I met at your networking event with the spice company?"
Oh yeah, Paul. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Paul
He's
Tuck
fantastic.
Tuck
Yeah, Tuk
Spices.
Tuk Spices.
Oh
Yeah,
my god, I see his stuff on LinkedIn.
yeah,
He's killing it.
yeah. We did a podcast together as well.
No
Yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. It will come out at some point, but
Oh my
yeah.
god.
And
Shout
yeah,
out. We'll
yeah.
link
Shout out,
to the.
shout out. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll link that part at some point.
Oh my
And that's
god.
something that like I think we want to do as well is showcase our clients and the people within our ecosystem,
Oh,
like
yeah.
what their products actually are and services actually are
I'm such a
through
fan
like a
of that.
storytelling visual metric.
Way.
So, for example, like Paul and I, we cooked together with his
Oh
spices.
my god,
You
I
know what I mean?
love this.
So
Yeah.
instead
As you.
of let's say the traditional like this, like sitting down, it was
Mm,
more how do we showcase the brand as well. So, I think
great
it's
idea.
a cool way for us to shout out brands that we work with, but also
And
for
tell the
us
stories.
to tell stories and also to
Mm,
show the ecosystem that like we're with the founders. Like we want to build these
and
businesses together,
cultivating.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, shout
love
out
that.
Paul, I
Shout
guess.
out
Yeah.
to Paul. I love that. We had a series briefly here at Meshed about like spotlighting small businesses, and like it was quite random at some points. Like I went to like a chocolate shop in Yorkshire,
Yeah.
and then like did one for fashion. It was so fun. I love storytelling marketing like that. I just think it's so impactful.
I agree.
So I'm definitely gonna link that somewhere. But Luke, thank you so much for coming on. I've loved this one.
Thank you for having me.
So many words of wisdom. Particularly, my biggest takeaway is the personality test. I think that's like such genius. I've got to tell
Yeah.
everybody about that. Everyone who's
And also
listening to
hiring
this.
employees. You should do that.
Yes,
100%. Yeah, we do
honestly,
that.
such
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good
yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Luke, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.